Welcome to InnoPower 2021. I'm your host, Jamal Smith, co-founder of InnoPower. We are here in the wonderful Co-Hatch co-working space designed to help boost the entrepreneurial spirit. And we are thankful to the owners of Co-Hatch for allowing us to be here in this space today. We are here with a special guest. I have U.S. Senator Todd Young here. And I appreciate you. Welcome to InnoPower.
It's great to be with you, Jamal.
Yeah. So we want to touch today about how we, as you put it, not just put the pieces together, but how do we plan for the future? How do we design opportunities to one, exist in the space that the global pandemic kind of created for us? How do we create opportunities for folks to make a better living? Leverage the opportunities within industries that have been birthed out of 2020 and beyond. I know that you are leading, co-chairing, authoring, pushing for and fighting for a lot of legislation that speaks to technical CTE training, multitude of options for folks to educate themselves and further advance. Speak a little bit about your thoughts on how we move in that way.
So look, I think you put it really well. This pandemic has shined a big magnifying glass on some long-standing fissures in this country, unequal opportunities and some social challenges that we have, and even exacerbated some. And these things ebb and flow throughout the history of our country. But I tend to think of the history of the United States as maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back consistently. And we're going to move forward. Mm-hmm. But we need to do that with intentionality. We can't just take that for granted. So some of the things I'm thinking about are the really rapidly changing economy right now. Yep. And how that's created unique challenges for people who historically have been, if not left behind, they faced headwinds disproportionately. So that would include, our Black communities, our Latina communities, various racial and ethnic groups, of course, but also, people who live in hollowed out rural communities who are disproportionately white. And so the good thing about all of that is that builds a political coalition that transcends race and ethnicity, but we need to do what we can to help everyone feel like they can play a meaningful role in this rapidly changing economy. So you alluded to some of the areas that I think are foundational. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Career and technical education. Yeah. Who doesn't want a vocation?
No. So speaking about that, so typically when you're having this conversation, education is at the core of whatever your solution is, and you can debate about what the end game might be, but somewhere usually education is there. The debate is typically how one pursues said education, maybe the barriers that might exist to achieve that education, or what type of education should one be pursuing, right? So we're talking about the vocational piece. Say a little bit more about that. I mean, there was a time, I think the history of the country is, like you said, the ebb and flow, right? At one point in time, there was an emphasis placed on having a vocation, right? That was the thing. A trade was valued. Somewhere along the lines that lost value. Now I think we're moving into a space where not only are those opportunities paying good money, but the opportunities are there. How do we take advantage of that?
Well, look, there's a lot of good work and experimentation occurring at the local level and the state level, but I think we're starting to figure this out. Yeah. We're figuring out there's an evidence base indicating that more emphasis on the math and the sciences is needed, and we need to make sure that our free enterprise system, our businesses, are communicating with our educational institutions to inform the curriculum. And
that's a good point. I was going to ask you to speak about the role the employer should play in this space.
Well, it's essential because, if we're going to make school relevant to my kids, to anybody's kids, they need to feel like it's somehow attached to their
Yeah.
life after school.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's attached to their quality of life and their ability to realize their dreams. So it won't be. Kids are pretty smart. They can quickly figure out if there's things being taught to them they won't use. So that's why career and technical education is really important, and why I'm co-chairing of the CTE caucus in Congress to elevate the issue, but not just rhetorically, to also come up with concrete solutions. So you alluded to this pathways education, that pathways legislation I put forward. This is designed to offer grants to states and localities that really have a data-proven, evidence-based model to provide a path out of K through 12 right into a career for those who choose not to go into a four-year institution. I think that's really important. Yeah. And if we can get that right, if we can get that piece right, that's really going to be essential.
That is, and I know I have a large family, 4 kids. I know you have the same, and you have the varying personalities. It's funny when I'm coaching the young group of guys, I say one of the best skill sets a coach has is understanding the varying personalities, right? You can't treat everybody the same because they're not going to react the same to treatment. So you have to be conscious of, what do they say? You're going to be fair, but not necessarily.
Yes.
Right? You're going to get what you work for. But understanding that dynamic just take our kids, for example. They're going to go and pursue different paths. It's interesting. My youngest is and who's a great student, has said to me, as he goes to take one of the million prescribed tests that he has to take, he goes, "Why am I taking this? What's this going to do for me in the future?" And I go, "It's going to keep you from getting your butt slapped by your mom." If you
right,
get
that's
done,
a good
first
answer.
Of all. Second of all, right? This builds basically your academic resume. But as you talk about the options that come out as it relates to the industry or the type of career that one could have, how do we communicate that to a growing list of young people who are questioning the worth of the 4-year collegiate experience?
Well, we can't underestimate the importance of social capital, and by that I mean role models.
Absolutely.
And supporters and coaches, whether they're athletic coaches or others. And we need to, as so many schools are increasingly learning, bring in those business leaders, bring in those successful entrepreneurs, and maybe they hail from the same neighborhoods and same circumstances as those very students, and that can be incredibly powerful. Yeah. I mean, I can remember being inspired myself by some of those interactions with people on the outside, of school. And so that's really important to get people thinking about, gosh, I've got a nurse there or a nurse's assistant, which incidentally there's a real need right now, and there will continue to be a need for those.
Heavy need for nurses. And you touched on social capital, which I think is an understated and undervalued asset, right? I think that's currency. Your social capital is currency.
Yes.
The fact that, we may have a relationship and I can call and say, "Hey, Senator, here's what I'm thinking. Does this make sense?" Right?
Yes.
Or do you have an idea about someone I can plug into to make this idea come to life? That's value. That's a currency. Not everybody has that, right? So, and in this space, we're talking about as well some of the gaps that might exist for folks who are wanting and willing to put in the work, but don't have that access.
So here's how I think about it. And I didn't invent this construct, but it comes from somebody who's probably going to win the Nobel Prize in economics. His name is Raj Chetty, and he teaches at Harvard. All right, and it's so simple even this Marine can understand, right? He said, essentially, you can invest in people. We need to do that.
Absolutely.
You can invest in places. We need to do that. A good example would be the legislation that we had to create opportunity zones, which are tax-advantaged areas that are lower income, disproportionately minority, where people can invest. They're starting to see a lot more investment. And then the last bucket, so people, places, is investing in mobility. And I'm not talking about economic mobility. I'm talking about actually allowing people to move from one place to another. if they're stuck in a failing school district and they want to move to the next one over, let's give them that mobility. If you have a single parent that would like to live in a couple of neighborhoods over because it's safer, it's closer to the transit stop, closer to access to health and education services and so forth, you do that. So I've worked with Senator Chris Van Hollen in D.C. on some legislation that we already know works, strong evidence base behind it. It will give our lowest income, disproportionately minority Hoosiers and other Americans the ability to get a voucher with some wraparound services to help people move from one location to another. And the evidence shows that this leads to a massive increase in high school graduation rates, college attendance and then graduation, long-term wealth accumulation, on and on and on. Helps both parent and child. So these are the sort of creative solutions for which an evidence base already exists that just need to be scaled.
It's interesting. So you mentioned quite a few initiatives, legislation projects, opportunity zones being one of them. A few pieces of legislation that you're currently working on, and it kind of harkens back to, for me anyway, this notion of access, right? And we talked about those gaps, right? We've got to figure out a way to make sure folks know about the good legislation that's happening. I mean, even opportunity zones, for as dope as I think a concept as that was, not everybody can take advantage of it.
No.
You know what I mean? So, and
I don't have a pile of money laying around.
That's exactly right. And so, and of course, you got the folks that say, well, the only people that can take advantage of the opportunity zones are the wealthy people anyway, which are disproportionately, white folks. So the very communities that have been kind of carved out as opportunity zones to help folks are not being taken, can't be taken advantage of by the very people who live there. Interesting enough, you'll talk to folks.
The point is, everybody's money goes into disproportionately minority neighborhoods, so that's a good thing.
Right, and the goal is to make that neighborhood better.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Right. So, but you talk to folks who live in the neighborhood, they may not even know what the opportunity zone is. So how do we create that access? Access and education and knowledge, right? Everybody can't meet the wonderful senator, right? So how do we create opportunities for folks to be able to plug into these opportunities, this legislation and the benefits that come from it, so that they then can position themselves?
So now we're talking to a different set of individuals, right? We're talking to the investor class and maybe some more sophisticated, higher educated individuals who may be tuning in here. But you know what? Not everyone grew up with the same blessings and frankly, luck of circumstance that I did. So we need to remove barriers from rank and file, Hoosiers and other Americans who are facing things. So you got it. So family leave, child care. Look, if I'm not coming up with solutions in those areas, then Bernie Sanders is going to come up with solutions. And frankly, I don't think his one-size-fits-all expensive solutions are really politically feasible and therefore not sustainable, probably not really workable. So I have a family leave solution to help out somebody who works at Walmart or at a fast serve restaurant, right? Somebody who takes care of my lawn care. I got a family leave solution there that I think can bring Republicans and Democrats together. Not everyone's going to think it's the best solution, but it's a solution. And then child care. The median household income family in this country, to say nothing of people of really modest means, spend a lot more on child care than they do college education expenses.
Child care is incredibly expensive.
Yes.
Right? Take it from somebody who's got multiple. It is expensive. And interestingly enough, you have conversations with folks who have young people. COVID forced folks to make some really tough decisions. Right?
Yes.
One of those pre-exposed conditions. I have to either find, and they shut down child care.
Yes.
Right? So what do I do with but I'm hourly. I have to go to work.
Right.
That's tough.
So, this is a barrier. It's at least a barrier, may not be the entire story, but this is definitely a barrier to people going to work. Absolutely. And if you want people to go to work, don't cast aspersions if they're staying home. Remove the barriers, figure out how they can afford child care. So we've come up with an apprenticeship model to elevate the profession, get people into the child care profession, make sure they make a little bit more. And all in the process, it will make child care more affordable. Non-compete agreements. is another way we can get people moving from job to job, because studies show, we know that people tend to make more money not by negotiating with their bosses for a higher salary, but by moving from one employer to another employer. But so many Americans don't have the freedom to leave
For the non-compete.
because of a non-compete agreement. They are overused. And there are other legal tools, narrower in scope, that don't trap people in a job, that can protect the secret sauce of particular employers and so forth. And so I got legislation to reform the application of non-compete. So look, I don't have all the answers, but informed by my interaction with Hoosiers, I spent about half my time during my first 2 years in office mixing with lower income Hoosiers, and that would of course be disproportionately minority Hoosiers. So I traveled around the state and built a bottom-up agenda. We call it our fair shot agenda. And working with my colleagues, I mean, we just need to advance some of these bills. And government doesn't have all the answers, but we have an important role in doing what we can to make sure that as we emerge from this pandemic, we really kind of supercharge our economy and heal the nation by making everyone feel like they are meaningful participants in it.
I think you're right in that government, you don't have all the answers. The government doesn't have all the answers, but I know one thing, everybody's got a role to play.
Yes.
Right? If you had some parting words for folks out there in our InnoPower country, right? Folks who are looking to do their part, young entrepreneurs, old entrepreneurs, some of our folks aspiring to change careers, make an impact on the business and the communities that they live and work in. Knowing all the good work that you're doing, what would be your message to those folks?
It's going to be a real simple message. It's actually the same message I'd probably deliver to your kids, but I'd also deliver it in corporate boardrooms. Assess what individual gifts you have, what God-given talents, what assets you have, whatever. And then assess the needs of your community. Start out there. Maybe you grow it to the state or the nation or even the world if that's where your passion lies. But match the two. Match the two. How can I serve? I tell this to my kiddos. I said, look, you have the gift of presence. We have a lady down the street who lives by herself, gets lonely a lot, so I had my 11-year-old go knock on her door once every couple of weeks and just say hi. Hey, I was thinking about you. That's a gift. And imagine, how many gifts if each of us literally with intentionality went through and assessed our own personal gifts and circumstances, how much we have to offer others. It really enriches your own life. So that would be it. Stay in the game.
Senator, thank you for the time.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
So, hey, this has been InnoPower 2021. We appreciate you for tuning in. Until next time, peace.